What's the most strangely unique punishment you ever received as a kid? How bad was it? I desperately wanted to order WrestleMania. I was a massive Hulk Hogan fan. Well, I was acting like a little shit and wouldn't stop. So, my dad ordered the WrestleMania pay-per-view. He sat in the living room and watched it and made me sit in the other room where I could just barely hear it but couldn't see it. He watched the whole damn thing and didn't let me move or ever see the screen. It was just effing brutal. In elementary school we had this one really strict teacher that would make us T-pose in the back of the room if we were being disruptive. Every one of us scoffed at the idea until about a minute in and your arms are killing you. Very effective punishment. The Australian Army calls this standing at full dress. It is a pretty exhausting punishment. Not sure how unique it was, but we would always be grounded from our rooms not to our rooms. It was the worst. You don't realize how much is in your room until you aren't allowed to go in it. Shit, my parents has something similar. We would be grounded from the house for the day if it was during a break. It really sucked in the summer. They just wanted to have fun in peace. When I was 5 or 6, definition old enough to know better, I bit my older sister directly on the stomach. Left top and bottom teeth imprinted wasn't something minor. Mom grabbed a dog collar and leash then tied me to a doorknob for several hours. If you act like a dog you get treated like a dog. I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me. 5 minutes later you can never keep a wolf like me on a leash. Howls at the moon. Essay writing. My dad is a graduate school professor and he made us write essays about what we had done wrong, why it was wrong, and what we should have done instead. We had to cite sources and use outside information/research. My dad would then read and correct the content and grammar of the essays until they were deemed satisfactory. We were basically grounded until the essay was complete and considered good enough. The worse the punishment, the longer the essay and the harder he critiqued it. For example, you left the dishes in the sink after being told way too many times. Pretty soon you were writing a short essay about germs and proper food handling, etc. I remember specifically getting caught drinking in the garage when I was 16. My dad was pissed and I had to write a 20-page essay about what the consequences of teenage drinking were to my 16-year-old brain, how much legal trouble I could have gotten into, and how much legal trouble my parents could have gotten into for allowing teenage drinking. Huge pain, but it got us thinking about topics we usually didn't think too in depth about, and it was better than having my parents yell and scream. Usually by the end of the essay writing process both parties would have chilled out and a calm discussion would follow. My parents didn't know what to do with me because I was being a prick, so they took literally everything out of my room including my bed. It was weird, and I remember sitting in the corner with my teddy. I was hiding it so they wouldn't take that too. I was the firstborn so they've learned. Same. A little less intense, still had furniture, but no toys/books. Also a firstborn. They were way more lax with my brother, to laximo, but maybe they were overcompensating for me. I was also made to sit in a chair in the living room for 3 days after school time when I was really young because my parents were trying to get my brother or I to confess to drawing on the kitchen table. It was my brother, but I 100% see how brainwashing can work because by the end of the joint punishment, I was second guessing myself and my memories. When I was a kid anytime my grandfather heard me say I was bored he'd make me read the newspaper next to him. After an hour or so of that I would no longer be bored. I miss him every time I see a newspaper. That doesn't seem like it's settled as a punishment to you. The first few minutes were not fun at all. After a while, I just kinda got into it. But it was his way to make me a better kid/person. A friend of mine recently told me that his mom used to have him kneel on uncooked rice when he did something wrong. Sounds miserable if you ask me. Very popular in old Catholic schools. Can cause permanent nerve damage. Hurts a bunch. Permanent nerve damage? Yikes. My little brother and I got into a fight at school. Our dad bought some grout cleaner and found old toothbrushes and made us scrub the grout in the room the dog slept in. Jokes on him, we had already made up and had a great time not doing homework or yard work, though we were sore the next day. When I was a kid and at my grandparents' place, whenever I was sick I had to swallow a tablespoonful of whiskey. Made me throw up every time. It didn't matter what the medical problem was. I got a tablespoon of whiskey, poison ivy, whiskey, flu, whiskey, food poisoning, whiskey, fell out of a tree and scrapped myself up real bad, whiskey. I think I was punished for being weak. There was no winning. If grandma or grandpa suspected that I wasn't feeling 100%, they'd straight out ask me what was wrong, and I had to say something or risk worse punishments. It's like that one time I sprained my shoulder and ended up with the doctor's fingers up my ass. I threw a ton of glitter on my brother when he was in the bathtub. My parents bought a giant bag of glitter and dumped it on my bed. They made me count it and would not give me my phone or laptop back until I did. In Catholic school, a nun made me go out back in the convent and cut her grass with a pair of scissors. My thumbs were bruised for a week and hurt for days. How the flip did they expect you to count glitter? Even better, what kept you from lying? It's not like they would count it and prove you wrong. Bit of backstory. For many years, my mother was having an affair with a married man. Every weekend we could go to sleazy motels where my brother and I would stay in a room with his daughter while he and my mother shacked up for the weekend in another room. Backstory part 2. As a child, I was obsessed with Florida. Always wanted to go there. It was my dream. Main story. One week in the summer I was with my grandma. I was around 10. My cousins from out of town were also coming to stay. I was super excited. My mother calls me at grandma's house and the following conversation takes place. Mom, do you want to go with us this weekend? Me, where to? Mom, the hotel, like always. Me, no, I wanna hang out with so and so, cousins, and grandma. Mom, okay. Fast forward 1 week and she picks me up from grandma's. My little brother starts telling how they went to Florida. I think he is a dumb kid making up stories, so I tell him to shut up. No, he says, we went to Florida. My mother corroborates his story. I start to cry and ask why she didn't tell me they were going to Florida. She then informs me that her boyfriend, later husband, decided that since I would rather see my cousins and grandma than spend time with him, that my punishment was I didn't get to go to Florida. I was devastated. I was a 16-year-old girl. We had 4 cats. It was my job to care for them because I wanted them. But I'd often forget to clean the litter boxes and make someone else do it because it stunk and it was gross, especially when one of the cats were sick. I'd been warned about it a couple times, but kept doing it. One day when I was at school, my mom moved all the litter boxes into my bedroom. She replaced the litter with a kind that doesn't reduce odor at all. She specifically told me I was not allowed to open windows, and I had to sleep in there, couldn't go sleep on the couch. Oh my god, it doesn't sound like much, but it was so bad. I'd rather be spanked. It lasted for a week before she let me move them back out into the laundry room again. That's very dangerous to breathe in for long periods of time. My mom was always taking my books away because I'd read instead of doing my homework. Also, my mom would go through the trash and punish me based on what I ate. In middle school, my parents took all my MacUp away from me because I hated leaving the house without it. I got a C in math in 8th grade and there was nothing left to take away, so my parents decided I would move in with my dad and go to a different high school than all my friends as a punishment. I'm 22 and have been paying my own phone bill for 4 years, but my mom still tries to take my phone away from me if she feels like I'm on it too much. My sister and I were arguing over some cheap plastic recorder, the musical kind, like a clarinet from hell for overtired parents. I wanted it because she wanted it. She wanted it because I wanted it. In the end, my dad walked up to us and settled it by breaking the recorder in half and handing us each a piece. We both learned a valuable lesson that day, I think. Note, I love my dad more than anything, and I definitely had a wonderful childhood. Your dad had probably been looking for an excuse to break that recorder for a while. My brother had a recorder for a while. We were all so happy when he lost it. When my dad was a teenager, if he didn't clean his room when his mother told him to, she would empty the contents of his room onto the front lawn for him to discover when he would get home from school. In my birth family, the only punishment other than being spanked with a hairbrush was the silent treatment and shunning, and it was terrible because we were never told what we had done wrong or even what the rules were, we would have to silently guess what rule we had broken. There was no prize for guessing right, and the silent treatment could go on for days or longer. It was bad, because it made me really jumpy, made it hard for me to trust people, and because I then had to teach myself how to speak up instead of sulking to communicate.